Hello world. Something that has fascinated me ever since I moved to Japan 6 years ago is danchi. Now the kanji for danchi literally means group land. However, what it's really describing is government housing complexes like those behind me. Now the inspiration comes from the Soviets, so their government housing, which probably accounts for the utilitarian design you see. Now, what I like about danchi is that they were often built as communities rather than standalone complexes. That's why it's common to see daycares, community centers, stores, and parks nearby. And the reason I think I came across so many of them during my urban explorations is because they're often connected to the greenways that I like to bike and walk along. Now, while danchi is the term used for these apartment complexes, it doesn't mean they're all government owned or that they all serve the same purpose. Many are managed by local governments and are intended for low-income people, so social housing, while some are owned by companies as a way to provide housing for employees. What I'll show you today, though, is the units designed for the middle class, or market housing, which are owned and operated by the semi-public entity called UR, or Yuaru in Japanese.
UR は一番最初日本住宅公団から始まってます。で、名前を変えながら今は UR 都市機構となっています。
And it was them that were responsible for the initial designs of danchi, both for themselves and the local governments. That's why I went to UR's museum to show you how they looked like when it all started. And if you've been into modern Japanese apartment buildings, a lot of these design features will look quite familiar. There's the sliding doors, called fusuma, which can be opened up when having a party, or closed off to make a small private room. The kitchen units, despite the changes in appliances, still look relatively similar, with the sink, stove, and cupboards sharing a single wall. And according to Yuaru, it was them that suggested a new housing style, the so-called DK, dining kitchen style, to separate the dining room and bedroom. So when you see those Japanese housing listings with DK in them, like 2DK for a unit with 2 bedrooms and a dining room and a kitchen, you know where that usage came from. The separation of the bathing room from the toilet was also done. Although at this time, having a private bath was still a luxury, as most people went to bathe at public bathing houses called sentos. While some units had the traditional Japanese-style squat toilets, or washiki, others had Western-style toilets installed. Seeing the history museum was great, but I wanted to see what more recent designs looked like, so Yuaru got me into one of their complexes built in 2006. Keep in mind that the units you saw previously and the units you're about to see today are ones designed for middle-income earners. Unlike some previous places I saw, where the grocery stores are right at the bottom of the building, this place has a commercial center that's right at the edge. The one disadvantage I saw of this planned space is that the nearest major train station is about a 30-minute walk away. It is on a bus route though, but generally, if you're working in the main areas of Tokyo, you'd probably be looking at a 45 to 60-minute commute by train and bus. But let's go into a unit and see what a 2-bedroom place looks like. At the entrance, there's the ubiquitous genkan, where you take off your shoes and then enter the home. Once again, you have your toilet, bathing, and sink and laundry areas all separate, which allows multiple people to use them at the same time. And oh yeah, it's BYOWM, bring your own washing machine. There's the kitchen that takes up one wall, and then another blank wall can be used for furnishings you bring yourself. And of course there's space to place a fridge you bring on your own, which is also standard practice for Japanese housing. Some rooms are separated by fusuma, or sliding doors. And this room here has more privacy, but also doesn't get much light since it's facing the outdoor hallway, and not much of a view since the window is frosted for privacy. One thing you'll notice is the lack of tatami rooms, which were once a standard, but now are becoming rarer in new builds. And here's the balcony where you'd hang dry your laundry. Even in the most expensive units, you'll still see this kind of setup. Dryers just aren't a big thing in Japan. On the balcony, you'll also find the fire escape that you can use in case of an emergency. I find there's very little wasted space in terms of corridors, and everything can be easily compartmentalized. It's quite different from the open floor planning you see in modern Western places. Outside of the units, there's the easy access panels that let service people get to all the utilities. There's also service panels inside of the unit as well. A fascinating unit I saw was one designed with separate entrances. I didn't film it well, but to the right of this tiny kitchen is a sliding door connecting to the main unit. I think it's originally meant for a couple taking care of an elderly parent, but nowadays it seems equally as useful for a couple still housing an adult child of theirs. Standard in any Tokyo apartment building is the bicycle parking. What comes at an extra cost is the car parking. This is the recycling and waste disposal center where everything is sorted out by the residents. One thing that was mandated for the area was that they build in a green manner. So you'll notice the green roofs that also have solar panels on top. In this community of buildings, you'll also find a community room, like over here, as well as a daycare center. Unlike some previous communities they built, which had space for grocery stores and other retail units on the bottom, this design has retail housed in its own building. Surrounding it, you can see the schools as well. Something I haven't talked about yet is why Yuaru is quite attractive to foreigners. One of the main features of Yuaru units is that they are first come, first served with no extra costs. What kind of costs, do you ask? Well, on top of a deposit that can be a month or two's rent, many non-Yuaru rental apartments will charge for things like key money, which is a kind of thank you money to the property owner that costs a month's rent, renewal money, which can be a month's rent every couple of years, and a guarantor fee, which can be half a month's rent. And let's not forget the realtor agent's fee as well, which would be another month's rent. Even if you can come up with all that, it still depends on if the owner or management company likes you, as I showcased in my video about why foreigners have difficulty renting in Japan. With Yuaru, you only pay that refundable deposit, there's no other fees. This is due in large part to Yuaru being a semi-governmental agency that has set up a fair system in place. This means that their main criteria for getting in is if you can afford to pay the rent, which requires you to prove your income and meet the minimum income thresholds. Unlike social housing, where you can't make too much money or else you don't qualify, it's the opposite. For the lowest rents, you need to have an income that's 4 times the cost. As rent gets more expensive, the income test is less stringent until you reach a cap of 400,000 yen a month. Once you make more than that amount a month, you can rent anything Yuaru has to offer. Yuaru housing is definitely not for low-income people, but I think it can be a solid option for people in the middle class. For my family, when we first moved to Japan, we did consider Yuaru housing, but there were alternative affordable options in the area we were looking at that we ended up choosing. But for other foreigners living in Japan who don't have a fluently speaking Japanese spouse like I did, Yuaru can be one of the only solid options for a middle-income family. The problem is that in big cities, there's not a lot of Yuaru housing, and the spaces can be competitive, with popular places gone the day they come up for rent. This is because, nationwide, there's only about 700,000 Yuaru units, which account for about 1.5% of the 52 million households in Japan. Hey, welcome to me editing. I realized after watching this over and over that it wasn't clear that I was talking about social housing from this point onwards, so here's me telling you. All the stats and images you will see is about low income or social housing, not middle income or market housing. Okay, what about that low income social housing I was talking about? They do have many more units, 2.16 million in fact, but it's so competitive that a lottery system is in place. The latest numbers from 2014 gave a 1 in 6 chance of getting a spot, but in Greater Tokyo, it was 1 in 16. The chances of not getting in is trending down though, so that seems like positive news. When I first started making this video, I had mistakenly thought that there were a lot of new danchi being built. However, what I was mostly witnessing was the rebuilding of old units. So while 17,000 units were built in 2016, most of them were rebuilds, not new construction. The truth is that since the building peak in the early 1970s, danchi construction has been on the decline. And nowadays, the Japanese population is following suit. On that happy note, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye. What is market housing, social housing, or just public housing in general like where you're from? Hey again. So there was this chunk right in the middle of the video that you didn't see because I cut it. It was all about the experimental design that Yuaru was testing. And the reason I cut it is because I didn't want you to think that this was the average housing. It was just experimental stuff. However, it's the end of the video, and what's the harm in showing you the kind of neat stuff they were working on? Although this was about like 20 years old or so it's not necessarily cutting edge, but still neat I thought. So check it out. What really struck me while getting the tour around the museum was that the agency wasn't simply trying to build functional housing, but they were trying to create better living environments. One such environment they were trying to improve was the sound environment. Unfortunately, I really mucked up the audio recording as I had a wireless mic on the presenter at all times. So when she was on the floor above dropping things, I could clearly hear everything. What she was showing was how they test different materials and designs to minimize sound transmission.
静かですよね。これはね、ゴム足が上と下についてるのでピタッと閉まるのと、あとここガラリっていうのが互い違いについてるんですね。これ実は音は通さないんですけど、空気は通すものなんですね。ですから通常の扉に比べるとすごく遮音はいいです。
What I was shown next was Yuaru's experimental designs, which are about 20 years old, if I remember correctly. This was a unit designed to be barrier-free for those in a wheelchair.
こちらコックピット型のキッチンと名前がついていますので、コックピットって言ったら飛行機の操縦席ですねと同じように座ったまんまどこでも手が届くように設計されています。水返しの部分が盛り上がっているのは、これは車椅子の方がこれを捕まって自由に動けるように、シンクの部分はちょうど足も入りますのでお茶碗洗いやすいですし、今ちょっと水止めちゃってるんですけど、お水はボタン1個で出るようになってます。ここだとちょっと高いんですね。そういった場合はこちら側とこちら側に高さの違うワゴンがあるんですね。ですから使いやすい方に持ってきてもらってお料理していただけます。こちらのキッチンは実際に新宿の河田町にコンフォガーデンという団地があるんですが、そちらの団地に17個だけ試験的に導入しています。
And as far as I know, it was only ever that one building that these special units were built in.
この3畳の部分は昼間は椅子代わりに縁台代わりにしてここでお茶飲んだりおしゃべりしてもらったりして、夜になるとここ開けていただくとお風呂になるんですね。これも木でカバーしてありますけども、開けていただくとお手洗いですね。ですからここだけで生活がもうできちゃうように設計されています。
These units over here are part of a different project called KSI. S stands for skeleton, meaning that they're providing a shell for the eye, which is the infill, or the interior. Basically, it's a design that allows the building to be constructed in a uniform way while still giving architects the freedom to customize the interior the way they like, placing interior walls, kitchens, and bathrooms in any manner they choose. One example of the tech they built to accomplish this is this flat wiring for lighting above that can be hidden under wallpaper. Another aspect is the piping and wiring, which can easily be routed around the subfloor. Unlike regular pipes which need slopes to move their contents, these ones can do the job while flat, which allows for more freedom in design choices. All the utilities can be managed from the exterior of each unit, something that is true of units I see in modern Japanese buildings today as well. This unit is still KSI, but since they were experimenting with different things you could do with the design, it looks drastically different from the previous one. The whole idea of KSI was that the buildings can be designed for multi-use and cater to people like single seniors, to people with disabilities, to families.
あとここ座っていただいて、パーティーなんかもね、大勢座っていただけるのでできますね。
Alright, so this is really the end. Bye bye.